Or at least we can just record it,
Okay.
and then, you know, worst case scenario, but I wanna go throw something just very weak on the, up on the blue of and go from there.
So the idea is we're going to just.
I started a whole new
Okay.
meeting, I'm just gonna run out there, pull something together real quick, throw it
Okay.
up on the agenda.
All right.
I'll try not to replace the agenda packet, but if it is, so be it, and just say, new meeting link,
Thanks.
sure.
And what do we need to do at the end?
Somebody just hit stop, does anybody know how to do Zoom? Okay, perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you. So,
This happened to LBC last week and we could not get started. We were 20 minutes late getting started.
I know, it's nearly seems like every meeting. So technically, I guess we can get going because we do have a quorum.
Yep.
It's being recorded, but no one from the outside world can
see us.
can tune in.
Right, but they can play the recording back.
Which potentially can get you in some,
Right. So we need to
some
be,
negative feedback if you, just be aware of that.
yeah,
if you-
absolutely.
I'll sit back here, so if, you know, when she gets that going, I'll just kind of keep an eye out for.
You're
Okay.
absolutely right.
So we're setting up a new link. We're gonna let the public know that there's a new link.
And we can move public comments down to later.
Yeah,
Chris, is that what we're gonna do? Or are we just gonna put a sign up? This is due to technical difficulties.
She's putting a new link on the agenda
Okay.
on the website
All
right
right,
now.
okay.
I suspect we're gonna miss a lot of people.
Yep.
And you know, it's unfortunate, but I don't know what else you guys can do.
we can cancel the meeting or hold it. It's being recorded and we're trying to do, I mean, these technical things, we're doing the best that we can with the resources we have. So I'd say at least we move forward with the meeting. Yeah. So with that, I guess I'll call the meeting to order at 4:03. We'll defer the welcome to the, I can welcome the public, but we're not gonna do public comment to hopefully later in the meeting when people can find the link and get there. I guess at this point, is there a motion to approve the August minutes?
Yes, all good.
For any changes or corrections to the minutes from August? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I just know this is always my favorite part of the meeting is to get the last ones approved.
So we can move on. Adoption of the agenda. Actually, I just, in the future, Patrick, we should probably move the agenda adoption before the minutes.
Okay, all right,
Not that's
okay,
technically.
great.
Anyway.
Just
Is
look like going through time.
Right. there a motion to move the agenda for September?
I'll move that we adopt the agenda, yes.
I'll support. Any changes? The only change I was
Just
gonna.
what you said is flipping around the minutes.
Yeah, flipping around the minutes, and the other thing is under tap business, I was gonna have meet Anna Cohen prior to the Parks Advisory Board,
Okay,
just to move that up,
Okay.
rather than, so that's the only thing, everyone's fine with that. Agreed. Moving that up, just flip flopping those two. All right, all those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes carry. All right, approval of the consent agenda. It's in our packet. It's attached to the correspondence tab, updated reports from August meeting, quadrant reports, and Scio Township Committee reports. So motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll approve on motion to approve.
somebody besides Liz,
Okay.
Liz and Steve, Norm, okay.
Norm's good.
All right.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Ayes carry. Now we're on to tap, sort of new business and tap business. So we did move up, meet Anna Cohen, new Scio Township Parks and Pathways Director. Welcome, Anna. I'll give a little bit of background. I did meet with, a week or so ago, right? And we toured some of the trails and parks and stuff. Anna was with us over a year ago, which, I think you guys came in and presented to us when you talked about,
Yeah, not this summer, but the summer.
yeah, the summer report, yeah, exactly, in 2021.
Mhm.
We the rookery and all that type of stuff. So Anna's worked for us, I'm saying us, for this township that summer, then we hired her back full-time in July. She attended Cornell and then got a master's here at Michigan. So I guess you want to tell us a little about yourself and then what you envision, then we'd happy to ask any questions. So first, welcome. Thank you for joining, Scio. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. A little bit about myself. Yeah, I studied ecology, ecosystem science, and community engagement, both in undergrad and then ecosystem science and management in my master's at U of M. I love being outside. I love bike riding, hiking, and I really can nerd out on ecosystem health and management. I'm really grateful to be working here, and it's pretty incredible to see TAP and the Parks Advisory Board, all the passionate people on these two bodies, and to get to work with you all. I'm excited to collaborate and work together. As Roy was saying, I've worked pretty closely with Parks Advisory Board thus far. And so I'm excited to work with you all at TAP and to really learn what you've been working so hard on. I got to go with Roy and see a lot of the projects, and I have been biking around, seeing what's what, and I look forward to learning more. And yeah, this is something I've been saying, but since I am pretty new, just in my second month here, if there's ever anything that you think I should know, or someone you think I should know, please feel free to grab me and kind of nudge me in that direction. That's been really helpful so far.
Yeah, I think we included her contact. I guess the question is, did we include her contact information, email, and that type of stuff?
No.
If not, we'll send it out to the
Yeah.
committee just so people have it. So yeah, if there's something, it's like, hey, what about this? Or, so you can easily email, how to about something.
Would your job description also been part of a packet? Like what is the role that you're taking on?
I can send that along.
Okay.
That does exist.
Because that'll help for us to know then what kinds of questions are appropriate or whatever. Sure, that'd be great. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure she's still learning what her
Yeah,
role
yeah.
is and what her job duties are, and all that type of stuff. Any new employee
Yep.
would be. But yeah, I mean, obviously we have, Parks Advisory and then TAP, sort of like, okay, both working and sort of jointly working together on a lot of these projects. And that's what we went around, and when we stopped in some of the parks, some of the trail projects, we're working on some of the pathway projects, some of the things we've done, what we sort of have lined up in the future. Just gonna look, that map was right over here.
Sorry, I put them up here.
But yeah, sort of just looking at, what's been talked about in the township for the last, decade or more. And, and some of the stuff is gonna take another decade or more to get there. So it's nice that we have, someone at the township that can help assist us. Because all being volunteers, we're sort of limited what we can get done. And so, and obviously you're a one person show too, so you can be somewhat limited, but you can get done too. So thank you. Anyone have any questions about?
I do. So Steve, Roy, and I are on a committee with, we're also on the Roads Committee, Roads Advisory Committee. We're the person on the Roads Advisory Committee. And we're trying to put together a plan. Come on, I've had a concussion. I'm not finding words right. Plan for a township-wide funding of our roads, pathways, roads. And Roy mentioned that you mentioned that you have some experience with public engagement. Could you talk about that a little bit so we can begin to get our juices going about what you might be able to do to help us? Because we need to get the public's reactions to these ideas before we present them to the Board of Trustees. So any ideas you have that might be relevant or not, that would be helpful.
Yeah, a couple thoughts. And I think we'll have to chat just for more context, but
Absolutely, I
just
think
to
I want to get
share.
everybody's juices going.
Yeah, to get the juices going. I worked in education, outdoor education, for years in undergrad and then after undergrad before going back to school. So I'm really comfortable being like a public facing person for a cause and holding events. I planned a lot of events in my previous jobs, so I feel comfortable doing that. And I also, as part of my master's project at U of M, conducted a year-long survey for a government org in Vermont. And so if surveys are part of it, I feel comfortable setting that up. Yeah, those are my thoughts off the bat.
Excuse me, we're starting to get people coming in, so I don't know if you want to just do a quick introduction so they know who's speaking now and where we are. We've got 3 new guests that have arrived.
Okay, yeah, I'll just do a quick, and thank you. Sorry about the technical difficulties. We did get started, but I appreciate people finding a new link. The other link couldn't make it work, so we're talking right now with Meet Anna Cole, the Scio Township Parks and Pathways Director. So that's where we are on the agenda under TAP business. But we'll come back. We haven't done the public comment because the public wasn't able to connect. So that's where we are on the agenda. So with that, Anna, didn't interrupt. Thanks, Chris. So yeah, I mean, yeah, public engagement, it's always, I'm glad you have that experience because, how can we as a township and TAP, get more people involved in the process of, because we're reaching out and, we've done some of it under the pros plan and other things, but as we continue to, engage, if it's a small project in a community and, some part of Scio Township versus a township-wide initiative, how can we better, get as many people involved as possible? I mean, I think these days, a lot of agencies struggle with that when you're trying to, get people involved in projects. And sometimes on certain things, if you're doing well, they just expectation is just to keep doing what you're doing because you're doing it well. Sometimes it's not until you do something, it's like, oh no, then we don't want you to do that. That's where they get more involved. As long as you're going down the path, like, hey, we're going down the path, we're building these trails, we're building parks that people want. Say, yeah, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And and some of the stuff that we're working on is not new. We've talked about, doing, like a Z Road has been talked about for 10 to 15 years. So as we continue to do that, it's like, oh yeah, of course, please finish that, connect to the border, or certain park projects that we've, initiated. Yeah, please finish that we guys have been talking about. As money becomes available, please continue that. I think sometimes like, okay, we're thinking about doing a new park or doing something like that. That's when it's like, okay, how can we engage people in this part of the township, in this part of the area, and those type of things. We'll maybe use you as a resource as we try to engage more people.
Yeah, and maybe you might want to tell some of these folks about the outdoor activities you've got lined up already.
Thank you. Yeah, it fits in perfectly. So with some members of the Parks Advisory Board, is this person needing to get in?
Sometimes that door is locked, it's not locked, that side door.
With some members of the Parks Advisory Board, including Nora. We've been talking about Scio outside. Should I keep going?
Yeah.
Hi. We've been talking about Scio outside, which is the Scio Community Parks and Pathways and Preserves Community Engagement Program, which will be launching in the next couple days. And so I think it fits in really nicely with this idea of providing opportunities for people to get involved. And it's made up of 2 components. One will be trail work days where people can really come and get dirty and work in the parks. Another component, which has existed already, is Saturdays at Scio, which are kind of more leisurely and a fun way to engage outside. And I think it'd be wonderful to have part of this programming be walking pathways to parks and engaging people so they understand how things are connected and how they will be further connected. So we can be in touch as those programs kind of start to develop and build a base.
That's really interesting. That's really a neat idea. I like this. Saturdays and Siles, what was the other one?
It's Saturdays at Scio and then Trail Team.
Okay,
Are those things on the Scio Township website already?
So they're not currently, we did just finally get everything in place today, so they'll be posted on the Nextdoor and the park's Facebook page. Do you all have another place where you like things to be posted? The website, certainly.
We'll take any suggestion.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion, because I belong, I'm Linda Smith, I'm, I don't know, local roads committee member, and we've done a lot of trail stuff. I'm also the secretary of something called Michigan Forest Association, so we do trail cleanup. A lot of companies are looking for ways to engage their employees in a helping day. And if you can get not just the next one, but the spring one and the summer one of 2023 marked into the website when you put the trail cleanup days in there. I know it's hard to know if that Saturday will rain or not. You sometimes can advertise it as an opportunity for local businesses to contribute to Scio Township as well, and pick up a few extra.
What was the name of the program?
Trail.
Oh, sorry. So the program, how do you connect the companies? Is there a name for that program?
No, I was just saying, if we get it on the website, we
Got
can try and tie
Okay.
it through.
That's a great idea.
Linda's also on the DDA. That'd be another, might be another way.
That would be another way to put it into the DDA
Scio
website.
Township
We
DDA,
can
which is
link it.
basically Jackson Quarter with all the business along there. So sort of like, that might be another way to advertise for the DDA too.
Well, the Saturdays at Scio is just a great way to get people into the parks, so they're aware of them too.
And working with the high schools, National Honor Society, all kinds of volunteer groups in high schools as well, maybe. Yeah, right.
There's typically in a college class or a teacher that's
Right.
looking for extra credit, extra hands.
Would the timing of you coming on board and the pros plan being finished, were you able to engage with the pros plans as it was being put together? Or I wasn't here the day of the presentation, so I don't know if you were here or not for that. Are you familiar with the pros plan?
I'm familiar. Chris and I have met. I wasn't involved with putting it together, but I've been very eager to learn about it
Yeah.
and definitely will be using that as a source of
Yeah.
info moving forward with this.
And rest assured, I will be asking for your input on
Excellent.
it. Not done yet.
Excellent. No, that's some good suggestions. And yeah, I like what what you started here and yeah, how we can expand that. And yeah, welcome one of the things for joining us today. Anything else? So, Anna will be joining us on not every TAP meeting, but when she can, because we move forward too. So this won't be the last time you see her.
Okay, great.
So the other item under TAP business is the Parks Advisory Board, merging TAP and Parks Advisory Board together. Andy and I know others have talked about this. Because one way I guess I look at what we're doing is, we got parks in Scio Township, and what we're doing is sort of building linear parks. And sometimes our linear parks, the trails, are connected to these parks. And a lot of our budget comes out of the same village. So, last spring when we were trying to get together the budget, we did need to sit down because, we can't ask for, let's say it's about, I think it's about $700,000. We can't ask for 600,000 and parks can't ask for 600,000, here we go. We need 1.2, we only have $700,000. So I think there is some, makes some sense to do that. I think it's gonna take a while just to get our head around it, what does parks do and what do we do? Does it make some sense? Obviously educating the township board, because those are the ones that, created both of these committees. So I know Andy was thinking 60 to 90 days. I'm probably thinking more like 6 to 9 months, just knowing how government works in general, to change, to, combine the two committees. So at this point, if you have comments or thinking about it, I guess just think about it as we, because we have had a couple of joint meetings with parks in the past too. So that's just something, I'm just thinking on the history. The TAP committee was sort of
Didn't it split off from parks or no?
I'm trying to remember what
No,
they
it
did.
was created independent.
Was it, okay,
6 years ago.
6 years ago?
Yeah.
And Parks has been around, how long?
Arts has been around about 6 years and TAP has been around about 4 is my understanding.
Okay,
4 now? Okay.
You know,
okay, so
give
there
or
was,
take.
okay. So it was a park, and if you go back, there was some other, I mean, because I remember when we were working on the Zeep Road, longer than that, there were other committees called different things over the years. And then it became, you know, the TAP committee in the park, so, you know, doesn't or doesn't make some, I think there is some sense, would, you know, less, you know, we have less influence if we had it not part of our own committee. Here again, all we're doing is making recommendations to the township board. You know, end of the day, township board decides, you know, if they're gonna spend money on this project, or that project. But I think we work together nicely now. And is working with both of us one-handed, would be sort of easy for her because there's only one committee versus two. But just let's think about that
The meeting was 2017.
for this tab.
I've been secretary the whole time.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
That'd be a large
Go
one.
back to the minutes. Okay. So
May I ask
some,
one question?
sure, go ahead.
So for other sources of funding like grants, would both of the groups, TAP and TAP, be drawing on the same kind of grant money or not?
Yeah, I mean, the DNR trust fund, you know, the both parks will be available for it and trails will be eligible for it. I mean, I don't think from that standpoint, it really wouldn't change anything. Because let's say we were going for, I mean, one-handed help better coordinate. Because let's say TAP, we want to do a trail project. We're going to go to the DNR and ask for, you know, some money. Let's say $300,000, that's only the cap. But let's say Parks is doing the same thing. Generally, the township, you wouldn't want to go the same year with two. So we, you know, if you're one group, we'd like, okay, we know we both want to go to DNR, but let's say Parks would go in 23, we could go in 24. And if we were one group, it'd make that simple. But we wouldn't be able to get twice as much money because we have two committees. At the end of the day, we're sort of all under the township umbrella. You know, if we're going to, you know, whatever type of funds for federal, state, private.
The DNR views Scio Township as one entity. So that grant funding is road saying, typically do one grant per year to a community. So whether right now you've already got conflicting interests between TAP and Parks and potentially going for grants at the same time. And if the township were awarded one or both, then they'd have to decide which one to accept. So having this all under one umbrella, with Anna in the lead, you now have a way of saying, okay, this is what we're going to do this year. This is what we're going to focus on. You do the public participation and the engagement, and you just have a stronger case for whatever you're applying. So I think in the long run, having this all under one group makes a lot more sense than trying to come at it from two different.
That makes sense.
The thrust of that whole idea is
And no, go ahead, Steve.
is because of funding. Because I can imagine if we bring TAP and Parks together, we'll just split off into subcommittees as TAP and Parks, and we'll come together to meet and talk about what we talked about, which is what we're doing now. Is it possible that we just have a liaison or a coordinating meeting between the two groups? I'm not against getting together. I'm just throwing out different thoughts about, well, okay, if we have 14 people in a meeting, how much are we going to get done versus 7? And then we can focus on specific kinds of tasks that then we can talk about it as a bigger group instead of always being in a bigger group and then splitting up into smaller. Maybe it's the same thing. I don't know. But it kind of sounds like we might end up turning into our own subcommittees, doing what we're doing right now if we do it that way.
And I guess we could look at what are other communities doing too, you know, what are other, what are they doing in whatever township. So, yeah, there's a lot of different ways to get there. It won't change your pay since, you know, 0 times 10 is still 0.
Of course.
And Steve, if it helps, I do work with Oakland Township. They currently have a separate safety paths and trails committee versus their parks commission, but they have 2 separate millages. So the Parks Commission gets their own pot of money from the taxpayers. Safety paths and trails get their own pot. And then they have very clearly delineated tasks between them. That's not the case here.
Right.
You've got one millage, all the money comes in and you're splitting it between the two groups already. So I think that would be the other argument for bringing this all together.
I like part of what Steve was saying, and that is that it may make sense to have a group of people that focuses more on TAP, more on the trails, pathways issues, and another group that does more of the parks and make sure there's intermingling of them. But I'm afraid that since pathways, trails are a smaller part, pathways for sure are a smaller part of what Parks Group has done, that we need to make sure that there's at least in the beginning of this transition, a focus on pathways that stays clear.
Mhm.
But that's my thought is.
Right.
So it's gonna be less money and you don't want it to get lost because it's important.
Mhm. You might, there's gonna be less money, money's gonna be the same, what do you, or what do you bet it?
So it's gonna be spread out differently. And so there may be less money for pathways. But anyway, it's just to making sure that there is a clear group of people that are focused on TAP issues,
Mhm.
rather than just having parks suddenly accept all responsibility. I assume we're not gonna have a 14-person committee as well.
Right.
But so it's going to be the usual 7 to 8.
Mhm.
So we've got to make sure there's a number
A
of,
balance.
a balance between TAP and
Right,
parks.
right.
So,
And I don't want to jump ahead too much, but the pros plan update, I mean, the people in the township, I don't want to go into this, but the priority is pathways are important to people in Scio Township, but people are important in Washington County and all over. So I think, one hand people are like, okay, whatever, parks, I'll only focus on parks. But, the survey that's done and people do want trails and pathways. If you look at the survey information, that is sort of number one, then open space and other things. So sort of like, some hand, if parks sort of went way over here, I think the public and the township board is like, wait a minute, our goal is both and don't, or the same thing, if we just went all trails, there's gotta be that balance. So I think, yeah, checks and balances is gonna be somewhat the public because they're the ones like, wait a minute, we passed this millage. And we sort of told them, what we'd like to get accomplished. So I think that's gonna be sort of the balance, but I agree with you, Patrick, we can't, have it all and how those, what ones of us would go there and be a part of it as a combined group. And just so that is a balanced focus that.
I'm sure an unbalanced focus wouldn't happen, but I just want to make sure we've got that in mind at the
Right.
start.
So, no, I think you guys raised some good points and something to keep thinking about. And I'll talk to, because I didn't really have a chance to talk to Andy, but I'm not sure where he was thinking the shorter window of 60 to 90 days.
One of the reasons for that is if you look at the rotation of our cycles on the memberships, they all come due and expire, I guess I should say, in November. So there's some idea that maybe that's a good time
I
for
see, okay.
working things.
And the millage, is that up for renewal in November also? No, okay.
That was a year millage, 10-year.
10-year millage, okay.
So we got another 8
Okay.
years of that. So
Yeah,
that's,
all right.
that's the good news. Okay.
Right, before we move on to old business, there is one person with their hand up. Do you want to do public public comment?
Yeah, since we were not able to do that earlier, let's go back up into the agenda and do public comment. So if you want to let them in, you have 3 minutes on public comment.
Kathleen Brandt, I'm going to try to let you in here if I know how to do this. Are you able to, you should be.
Yeah, this is Kathleen Brandt. My hand has been raised for like 15 minutes. You guys aren't following your agenda. I feel like I'm turning into the angry bird citizen. I am so upset with these committees that are disrespectful to starting their meetings, learning how to run Zoom. Citizens are missing. We don't even know what you did for the first 15 minutes. I didn't hear anything about public comment, when it was gonna happen. My hand is ignored while it's raised. I'm pretty annoyed with a lot of these committees, because, you know, there's some rules there and you're not following them. Anyway, that's my angry bird commentation. I'll move on. Can somebody tell me when Linda Smith was appointed to this committee?
She's just a guest. She's not on the committee.
Oh, that wasn't announced either. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Pattinson, you are next.
Thank you, Rob Pattinson, Scio Township. Unfortunately, I have some of the same issues as Kathleen. 2 questions. What did we miss in the first 15 minutes of the meeting that you started without the public present? And when Linda came in, it kind of surprised me, and I looked at the TAP website page, and it's got Roy as chair, Patrick Shields as the secretary, Chris Chang as the planning commission rep, Suzanne Flowers as vice chair, Steve Kern, Marjorie Knapp, Norm Roller, and Patrick McLaughlin, and a vacant LPC rep. Lisa, is that you at the front table? Lisa Pappas, right?
Oh, no, I'm Liz Wiseman, so.
Liz Wiseman, I beg your
Yeah,
pardon.
yeah, yeah. So
sorry.
I'm the vacant LPC person.
Ah, okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah, thank you.
That was my second question. Thank you very much again.
Great.
Okay, moving on. Pam Boyd.
Thank you. Pam Boyd, a Scio resident. Anna, I emailed you last week and I neglected to ask you to please send me a blurb that I can put in my weekly newsletter about your trail team. And I have for about a year now talked about Saturdays at Scio. But I would also like to add in your Trailwoods schedule and any blurb that you would like to have to explain to residents. I have started posting my newsletter on Nextdoor, where for people who don't want to give me their email address, I now have a website and people can go directly to the website and look at the most recent edition. So you might get a little bit of traction from there. It's another opportunity to get the word out there. So I sent you an email last week. If you've got any trouble, anybody can tell you where to find me. Thanks a lot. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's everybody that's had their hands up. Just so everybody that is in attendance knows, the meeting is recorded and will be available for review, so you can catch up on what happened in the opening 15 minutes.
Thank you for that information.
We
One more
apologize.
question for you, Chris. When did the meeting recording start? Did it start when the meeting started, or did it start when Zoom came up?
It started right when the meeting started.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris.
Yeah, we sorry about technical difficulties. We did record it, but then we got the second link out. So with that, apologize for that. And like we said, we did invite Linda here because we do have an item on the agenda to talk about renewing the township-wide road updates. That was the reason she was invited to the meeting. So with that, we're done with public comment. We'll get into old business, which is renewing the township-wide road update. In our packet is Patrick and I are on the subcommittee along with Steve and Bob Walsh. So we're meeting every 3 or 4 weeks trying to, strategize and come up with a plan. The township-wide road millage does expire in 2023. Original intent was for some of the money to be set aside for pathways and trails. That didn't happen at the beginning. There was an action taken, I think, in 2020. I'm not sure if that was technically done properly. So at this point, most of the road money is being spent on roads. I'm not the accountant here, so I guess you need to ask the township if any under the road money has been spent on trails. I don't believe so, but I don't really know for sure. But as we move forward, you know, we talk about, you know, 23 to 33. What we're working as a subcommittee is, what you have to do is put together a plan. That's what we did in 2012, when we did the thing in 2013. And the plan basically just tells you on the roads situation, where we're gonna spend the money over the next 10 years. There's a list of all the local roads. And here again, roads in anywhere in the state of Michigan, you know, you have the interstates, you have the state highways, MDOT takes care of those. You have the primary roads like Z Road, Jackson Road, the major roads, Liberty, Road Commission takes care of those. Then you get the local roads, which connect to the primary roads, and the primary roads connect to the interstate system. So it's sort of like, that's how the whole network works in Michigan, works in the United States. So local roads are gonna be the Marshall roads, the East Delhi, the West Delhi, the Peters roads. So those roads, people live on them, but they get to the major roads, the Z roads and the other roads to get to places. Those really aren't funded. So when back in 2010, 2011, the local, most of our gravel roads in Scio Township were in terrible shape because there was no funding for them. So you take care of a road, you need funding, and you need to put gravel and limestone on to take care of them. So that was the whole idea. And then, so that was the idea, and that's what we presented to the township board, and did a township-wide special assessment district where they paid $85 per parcel. We came up with this plan and said, hey, we're gonna fix all these roads. And that's what we've been doing for the last 9 years. And you can go back, there's a whole spreadsheet showing what we did each year. This year, there's a list of projects. We work with the road commission, they sort of do the work. Townships sends them the money and they do the road improvements on those roads. And on some of the paved local roads, it might be just a chip seal or do some things. Also, in part of that program in 2013 is there were 3 special projects: paving North Delhi, which is from Huron River Drive up the hill to the end of the Scio Township. It's where Lockout Pine comes out. Prior to that, every time there'd be a major storm rain event, a lot of the stone would wash down that hill and end up in the Huron River or in the Huron River Drive. So that was a priority. So that was a project done at probably $600,000 or $700,000. That was money set aside. Scio Ridge Road, which is the road that connects Liberty to South Church, goes through Upland Subdivision, Meadowlands,
Ravines, Hometown
Yeah.
Village, Walnut View, Walnut Glen.
right? There's what,
And
1,200,
2 other apartments,
1,200
different, 1,200 units.
units are connected to that. That used to be a local road. There was money set aside to resurface that road. And in the meantime, the road commission took that over as a primary road. So that's no longer a responsibility of the township. But back then it was, and it was in pretty bad shape. So it was money set aside for that. The other special project was Liberty Road, west of Z Road. You go down there about a mile and there's like a 30-foot deep muck hole that's about 300 feet deep. And the road commission's been putting stone in there for the last 50 years. It keeps settling down. And prior to 2010, 12, it was being closed probably for like 3 or 4 months out of the year because it would be underwater, 2 to 3 feet of water, sometimes 8 inches of water. But so the people like, hey, we need to figure out a solution. We put aside special money for that. And there's improvements to bring that road up, put some geogrid, some fabric to help stabilize it so it stays up. So those are some of the special projects that were assigned when we did this last time. And that's what we're looking together this time. Are there special projects? Are there projects that would require, because some of our road projects are just pure road improvements, but some of them could be a road project with a pathway or a sidewalk. So that's where you could, interchange some of the road money for a project. And one of the projects that's been talked about for 10 or 15 years is a section of Park Road between Z Road down to Stabler. There's a development, Trailwoods, they're improving the section between their development, which is at Stabler, about half the way to Cedar Ridge Drive. Then the other part, that's how they're funding that, and the developer is funding all that. Then the other part is not being funded. So let's talk about maybe that'd be a special project between 2023 or 2024 and into the future, is make that one of the special projects. And part of that project would probably make sense because there's a lot of other trails be connected in there, make it a road improvement also with a pathway or a sidewalk on the one side. So that might be something that be funded with the township-wide road SAD. So those are some of the ideas, but if there's other things as we, as you're thinking of roads or pathways or trails, as we're trying to develop this, sort of like a 10-year lookout of what should be done. A lot of times it's just routine maintenance, which means like, if you have a gravel driveway, you need to add gravel to your gravel driveway every 2 years, a gravel road's the same way. Gravel breaks down, it's, blown away, scraped away, and different things like that. So it's that part of it's just routine maintenance and adding material to it. Then the fourth set of roads, or fifth, I don't know, is subdivision roads, which here again, there's no real funding from the state. So subdivision roads, the idea was the township, the residents who uses the subdivision road, people that live there. So the idea was you'd have a neighborhood SAD do it. But what we also decided was 10 years ago is that after they repave it, the township would take on crack sealing and doing preventive maintenance, which is basically a surface coating. Like if you have an asphalt driveway, some people seal their asphalt driveway, some type of like that to extend the life of that pavement. So those are some of the things we agreed to do. Also, we put in some incentive money up front for some of them. And I think next time we might not be doing that, but we may be putting aside money to do engineering upfront. So if it's more complicated subdivision or there was problems previous and need to do some engineering, some of them are just strictly just mill off the pavement and resurface it. But sometimes there might be back in this corner, a drainage problem in this area that needs some engineering done. So that's we're going to plan is to talk about setting aside some money upfront. So there'd be engineering money in the township-wide SAD. So it wouldn't have to come out of the township's general fund, and the residents wouldn't have to pay for it up front either. So it'd be, if there's issue, let's try to look into doing that. So I think that was some of the things as a subcommittee, both Steve and Patrick, you guys are both on the subcommittee. Is there things that I overlooked and forgot to mention?
We talked a little bit about whether it's a millage or an SAD, and those are both options. We're going to spend our time focused on collecting data and thinking carefully about how to present that information to the Board of Trustees so they can make an informed decision about whether the SAD or a millage is the best method for the community. So we're going to do a lot of math work. So how much money did we have last time? What got spent? What didn't? What was spent on? The impact of those expenditures. Looking at what effect inflation is having on our ability to replicate what we did last time, and see if we should not consider raising the amount so that at least we can do as much as we did last time.
Raising the amount.
The amount of whatever the SAD or the millage is.
I see.
And the cost per unit. Let's see, we're going to look at future needs. So there may be important to do some different kinds of signature projects. So we talked about a lot of the issues with gravel roads is the entries from paved road to the gravel roads should be done better. And so we want to make sure that we've identified some of the more troublesome ones that we can deal with. And we want to look at culverts, and if there aren't any particularly troublesome culverts that shouldn't be part of the special project. Let's see. And then we've been talking a lot about how to involve the public in the process once we have collected this data. But did you have any comments that you're in the other half of this with the roads?
Well, just to clarify, so what we currently have is a township-wide SAD that expires with the winter 2022 tax bill. So this next tax collection will be the last increment, which will be collected under the current body at $85 per parcel. And Patrick's correct, we're trying to make our way through the legal landscape to see whether a millage is the better way to proceed, or if we try to put it together again as a township-wide SAD. But it's done a lot of good, and I think it could be a very good vehicle to work as we're moving forward, the township does not have other roads funds. So we are trying to put together a message to the citizens that says, it's a small amount we're asking everyone to pay. If you choose not to pay it because it's a millage and you vote against it, there is no other mechanism for the smaller roads. If the county's not paying for it, it won't get done unless you pay for it directly out of your pocket. It's gonna be a tough message.
And how will the public, in what way will they be able to participate? Is there gonna be some point at which people can ask questions and kind of comment
Yeah.
and share their opinions on this?
Yeah, last time there were 2 public hearings or input sessions. I mean, I know at least one was at WISD, maybe one was here. So you get the word out and because basically when you develop the plan, what you're gonna look at for the next 10 years, that's where you want to get public input on, you know, it's like.
That'll be important,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So that's where, these are the roads being proposed, these are the why these roads, and what's going to be done to them. So yeah, and then the whole process, the whole question about, is it a township-wide special assessment district, which sets the same, everyone pays the same $85, or you go a millage, which a millage, it's based on your taxable value. You know, so I'm gonna pay different than you and you, everyone's gonna be paying different amounts. And some of the reasons, logical reasons why we went special assessment, because do I use a road more than you or you know, we sort of all use them equally. So that's why dividing it equally so everyone pays the same amount was one reason. And then with the millage, the farmers are hit hard because let's say they own 300 acres and they're assessed for all that, but it's not like they use up the roads that much more than I do or Patrick or you do, you know, so that's why in other townships have been doing the township wide for those same reasons. So that's, you know, some of the background of why we looked at doing this 10 years ago. The township that we followed is Texas Township, which is in Kalamazoo County. They did this probably 10 or 12 years ago. I just talked with them. They had $60 per parcel they did. They just renewed it last year. They doubled it from 60 to up to 120. That raised about $750,000. And they had very little pushback. Gonna do it for another 10 years. And when we did our initiative, you know, in 2012 and 2013, at the public meetings, I think there was only 1 or 2 people that, you know, voiced opposition of paying the $85. The other benefit, I think, is $85. When you talk millage, you talk, you know, half a mil, quarter mil, 3/4 mil. You know, I've done this a while and people's eyes glaze over because what's that really mean to me? If you tell them it's gonna be $85 or $95, people are like, oh, that's per year? It's like, yeah, it's like, okay, I understand that versus, you know, what's a quarter mil gonna cost you or you, you know, you have to start running the math. It gets really complicated real quick. And versus you tell them exactly what it's going to be, it's a little easier to sell, and, you know, understand.
So right now, there's no millage, though, so it'd be new millage.
It's a special assessment district, a township-wide
Right.
special, so,
But the millage you're talking about would be something new that people would vote on.
right.
Okay, I hear you.
Yeah, that's the other thing is township-wide as special assessment district, the township board decides if they want to do it or not. The millage will be voted on by the people.
I see.
So that's the, so there's different, you know, there's pluses and minuses on, you know, both ways of doing it. So yeah, if there was a millage, then there's a replace the special assessment district, or you could just renew the special assessment district, potentially. But ultimately, it's going to be, we're going to gather the information, we're going to gather the numbers, we're going to gather, do the projects. Ultimately, it's going to be the township board who decides, you know, here again, we're recommending body and, you know, get input from the community. What makes most sense.
Roy, can I just insert? So something that we alluded to before was that in 2012 and 2013, Parks, Pathways, and TAP weren't part of the picture yet. And so if we're adding our projects, we have to say, if we want to add any TAP projects into this, in addition to the roads that would be worked on, we have to allocate, we have to say exactly how the money would be spent in advance. And so those decisions need to be made in the next 3 to 6 months in order to have this stay as an annual bill on the tax.
So sort of a short, deeper dive into the numbers, for example, we were talking about how township has grown and large lots have been subdivided into smaller ones, so you'll have more revenue per what used to be 100 acres is now, 10 acres, whatever, we'll have that. There's, the other idea of getting the word out. We can post videos on the website, right? We could maybe do a 2-minute short, do some charts and show some things. Besides having people come in and participate, those people that can't come in, we encourage them to check the video on the website to do a quick 2-minute tutorial on what we're talking about. And then public benefit from development, just having that become more, helping people become more aware of the money that's brought in because of the work of, that all the different committees are doing and trying to gain public benefit from developers, as you've already alluded to on Park Road and other things, that offsets perhaps some of the, instead of going to 95, we might keep it at 85 because we have these combinations of money's coming in that don't necessarily have to come out of your pocket because, well, we have a developer take care of that as part of the public benefit. So there's a lot of deeper dive into the numbers, which you're the numbers guy, so we'll figure that out. But anyway, so engaging with you to help let the public know and other ideas on how we can have, if a video works, great. If not, some other ideas to, really help educate people. And eyes glazing over a 10-minute video, for example, would be a mistake.
Yeah.
If we can
Gotta
keep
be
it
short
2
and
minutes,
precise, exactly.
that kind of thing,
Yeah.
figuring out the right way to do that.
Mhm.
Anyway, get the word out.
And just one other comment on public participation. One of the comments that we all had, LPC, and I think you all had on the pros plan was that it was publicized, but it really needed to be publicized more widely and repeatedly so that people knew that we were having this event. Because, and we can, I think it's really important to just remember that and do what we can learn from that example.
How do we get the word out? Yeah, and what Steve's alluding to, in 2013, there were, let's think the number was like 6,000 parcels. In the last 10 years, there's a new development here, new development here, new development here. So maybe another 1,000 parcels. So that's where it's like, okay, by adding 1,000 parcels, it's like, you run those numbers, that's what we're gonna run, see what we need, and then the revenue source, and that's where at the end of the day, how you determine what the numbers should be. And like I said, then you can go back and either divide equally between the number of parcels or look at the millage and how many tenths of a mil will it take to generate that same revenue. So that's where it sort of all comes together. But then you also have the cost of materials is quite a bit more than it was 10 years ago. So trying to balance all those.
We have a lot of math to do.
Yeah.
Actually,
He does.
he and Bob have a lot of math. to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So any questions on that? I mean, something like, I'm saying, it's something we're working on, we're not, first we'll probably, this fall, we've already started to do it in roads, but I think between parks and tech, we need to start figuring out what do we want to produce through 2023, which is going to be, the budget will be here next March, but we need to get those together. And then also from 23 to 33 is sort of the long-term, the 10-year look, not just in 1 year. So I think we'll be doing sort of the same thing, looking at a snapshot for 1 year, where we like to spend our money on, but then also look at where do we think we should be spending money over the next 10 years. And the do nothing is an option, but some of us that were involved in roads back in 2010, 11, it wasn't a pretty picture when we didn't fix our roads for 10 years. They're really more like 20 or 30 years. They do fall apart. And, so anything else on that? Okay. Next item is proposed engineering at Scio Ridge and Uplands Drive. Attached on, I think, pages 22 and through 26 are some drawings that, and these are very preliminary drawings that Washington Engineering has prepared. The first couple are really just existing conditions, which they really don't mean a whole lot. The drawings on the bottom of page 22 sort of shows the sidewalk. And so basically, as we talked about this, at Uplands and South Ridge Road, there's 4 developments that went in there. And each did their own little thing on so far as sidewalks, and a lot of them stopped when they got to the road. So the plan is for this part, phase 1, and I think if you go scroll down to page 20, sheet 23, that's where the ravines, Meadowwinds, and what's this subdivision to the north?
Hometown Village.
Hometown Village. They all built developments, but their sidewalks never connected. So this is connecting those sidewalks, and that's sort of what that shows. The dark lines are the new sidewalks being proposed with a proposed crosswalk.
Sorry, Roy, are you on site plan overall or site plan north? What,
The north part of the drawing,
but is it the drawing called site plan overall or is it
Site
site
plan
plan north?
north.
Okay,
yeah.
thanks.
So that's what the goal is. We'll get some more detailed information, but this was just a draft. And then we're gonna have a public meeting on this too. But Joe, we hired Washington Engineering, and he sent these over, so I'm just showing you. They are making progress. They did the survey. This is sort of the first draft. The other thing that's out here are 2 AAATA bus stops and school bus stops. So we're working with the ride to figure out what makes sense for the best location for the bus stop. Because right now, if you go out there, the bus stop is in the shoulder, which is sometimes very muddy. So you ask people to stand in the mud while they get on the bus or get off the bus. So ideally, you would put a concrete pad there so people could safely get on and off the bus or stand when they're waiting for the bus somewhere safely. So that's what this is showing. So I just wanted to share this. And then on the west side, if you go down to the site plan overall, which the scale gets, you can zoom in, make it a little bigger. You can see they're actually going to do some work on the other side of the road, which is Uplands Development, and that is, what's the name of the road there that comes out, Patrick?
South Church. No, I'm sorry, Snowberry Ridge.
Snowberry comes out there. So there's a bus stop over there. We'd move it to potentially a location that's safer for everyone too. So that's where we're gonna work with the transit authority to figure out what makes most sense. And then we'll come back. Here again, we're doing the engineering this year. Potentially we do a project next year out there. And I think we've all talked about this as sort of phase 1. Ideally, when these 4 neighborhoods are finally connected, so you can walk from one neighborhood to the other neighborhood without, on a sidewalk. Then our goal ultimately would be to continue the sidewalk down Uplands and east on South Church to the city of Ann Arbor. And you got Oak Valley Drive, you got a library down there, you got obviously shopping down there in Pittsfield Township, and then you got the city of Ann Arbor right on the other side of I-94. So ultimately, these 1,200 units eventually safely walk or ride their bike to those things. So that's probably, future years, 20, if we do this in 23, maybe 24, 25. But here again, that's where we got to put something like this into a long-range plan to figure out funding for it.
Just curious, since they're doing some engineering on this, when you use the word sidewalk, that isn't necessarily the same as riding a bike on it, or is it? Is there another term for making it another foot wider? I'm just guessing, to make it a sidewalk / bike path kind of thing. Is there a way to incorporate that, or is that what you mean by sidewalk?
Well, these are right now, I think we're looking at just 5-foot wide sidewalks.
There's very narrow spaces.
So I think
Right,
as we
right.
start going down towards South Church Road and into the city, I think that's where we would want to try to widen it out, make it a multi-use path,
Right,
not
Okay.
just a sidewalk for the neighborhood.
that's why I was asking. I didn't know where.
Good, very good question.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's somewhat interchanging some of those, but at this point, and we can ask that question, as we go through this, would any of these areas, maybe the proposed sidewalk along Uplands, should that be wider to 7 feet? So it could be accommodate, as you go into the neighborhoods, Ravines and Meadowlands, it really just ties in the sidewalk and you're really just on a neighborhood street. So you could bike on the neighborhood street and walk on the sidewalk. But as you're going down Upland, which is taking you out to South Church, maybe looking at a wider
Absolutely.
scenario might make.
Is that where
more
we
sense.
walked, Patrick, last year? This curve here?
Yep.
Yeah.
And one of the things for folks in the audience is if you were to pull up Upland Drive on Google Maps, what you would see is 3 junior high kids, based on the size of the backpacks and the size of the bodies, that's what they look like to me, walking in the middle of the street. They got off the bus, walking in the middle of the street because there's no place to walk. It's very dangerous.
Especially on uplands, that's that
Yeah,
main feeder that
exactly.
comes in.
And I've been walking that with my walker for the last 10 miles a day for the last 15 weeks. It's really dangerous. So
The goal
that
is-
needs to be dealt with.
Get people off the road so they safely can, how, it's an oversight, why these developments weren't connected, but we're, at this point. So,
These other stories, we were out there one day and looking at that intersection. And there was 3 moms pushing their babies in strollers. And they had to do it, the road came to an end and they had to do it through the grass. No sidewalk there. Some things need to be addressed in that section. It's dangerous.
So I think actually we put money in this year's budget for construction, which obviously won't happen. So that'll have to get rolled into next year's budget as we get, and we'll have, more accurate cost estimates, what does cost to do these type of improvements. But I think, here again, this is a project that's been talked about for a long time. So it's exciting now. There's a millage and funding for doing some of these, connecting some of these situations. And here again, maybe if we had a safer way for people to ride the bus, more people would ride the bus. I'm sure some people are like, I really want to ride the bus if I have to stand, in the road to catch the bus. So something to think about as we move forward. Any other questions on this? Let's go back up to the agenda. Map of township pathways. And Chris did provide that, our big maps.
Yeah, so I've got these are the maps that were related to. See now, Patrick, I thought that would be you hitting that.
Well, thank God it's not.
Sorry.
Make for sure we've got Zoom back. We haven't lost them.
No, we haven't lost.
Oh, good.
No, this is just my PC. No big deal.
We're still here.
Okay. What I'm gonna do, Roy, I'm just gonna hand these down to you.
Okay.
It's been a long day. I'm gonna try to share my screen so folks at home can see this a little bit better too. Bear with me.
This was a map that was developed, I don't know if there's a date on here, 26/15/22. Actually, it was developed way before that, but I think this is the latest version of this
Yeah.
map. There's been some revisions to it. But it shows a lot of open space that the townships, acquired over the last 10 or 15 years. Some of it's, joint projects with other communities within township. Potential trail connections, parks that we have, land that we have in open space. So I think most of us have seen this, but Steve was asking, the other thing is we should probably just, I'm sure we have before, we should send this to our committee so we can just save it. I'd save it on my laptop so that I have it, I can refer to it. Because sometimes they're like, last meeting, we're like, where's the map? And it used to be in here.
Yeah.
Now it's.
And I think we also should put it on the website.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of
And
feedback
this will
last.
be- This is going to be in the pros plan.
Okay.
And so if you would, let me kind of give you a little bit of an idea of how this might work. This is, as of today, the most recent iteration of the map. It shows and I'm gonna try to zoom in. It's hard to see in here. I apologize, folks. No, it's not letting me zoom. I've got too many windows open on a very small screen. Well, it does show in Dexter how the path is now completed. It changes the pathway that was originally called the Mill Creek Path a little bit. Where before we had it going down south along, there's gotta be a way to do this. just does not want to cooperate. At any rate, it's showing basically the feedback that we got from the survey for the pros plan, both the in-person meeting and the online feedback. It's reflecting some changes that have happened in recent years. And it's something that you can now use to start to fill out that matrix that we've talked about in the past, where you can start to look at how many parcels would be impacted, how many easements would we need to have, you know, what connections are there, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of interesting things going on in this area in particular that I think is going to have a pretty major impact on you. At this point, when you've got this plan, what you're going to be able to do is you review the pros plan. This will be there. So you and everybody in the audience and everybody in the township will have an opportunity to look at the plans, comment, make sure we don't have something showing on there that nobody wants to see. And then we can go on from there. This group can use this to help fill out the matrix, as I was saying, and really burrow down and make sure that you've got a good understanding of, you know, what kind of costs might be there, and you can assign a more or less objective score to each individual route. I started out with Mill Creek and broke it into segments that might be logical, and I really wish I could zoom in. And as I'm seeing it right now, there are roughly 4 segments on that route. The first one being on the Dexter Community Schools property. So right there, you've got an issue of do we have cooperation with the school district? Would they support that, having, you know, a public pathway going behind the school? The second would be crossing over down to Sloan and connecting where the existing easement is. It looks like a utility easement. Using that to connect over to Baker Road and south to just north of the garden center, crossing over Baker at that point and connecting onto a couple of large parcels. So there again, possible easement. There may be other developments going on. Ultimately connecting to George Marshall Preserve, going through there down to Marshall Road. And then for now, it's shown as a on-road pathway, just a signed pathway on Marshall, connecting all the way over to Marshall Park at Z Road and Marshall Road. With that information, you can go through and you can determine how feasible is each segment? Is this something that takes priority over, let's say, Scio Ridge? And I think the answer at this point would probably be Scio Ridge takes priority. There's been a long call for that, but there may be some opportunities that show up here over the coming years, over the coming months for that matter, that change the equation a bit. Let's just, for the sake of argument, let's say that somebody bought up those big parcels that I'm talking about, said, I'm gonna deed it to the township, here you go, and I'm gonna actually help finance a trail through there. Well, now that changes the discussion quite a bit. But this map is the first step in getting that to work. I'm gonna stop sharing because it really isn't helping much for people at home, and it is available. It will be available online and in the pros.
At the township website.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
So Chris, just to follow up on that, so if somebody has a comment to make, they just go to the website pros plan and they can type in a suggestion to you?
I think the way we're going to do this is, well, certainly they can send me an email directly. They can contact Parks at the Parks email. They can contact TAP at the TAP email.
Okay.
That way, if you've got something that you're specifically concerned about with, a trail, it would make much more sense to send those emails to you. There is also going to be a public hearing at the end of a 30-day review process where you'll have an opportunity to speak in person and let your thoughts be known. So
So we have 3 maps though.
So the
basically.
3
That's-
maps
yeah.
are ones you've seen before. There's just been minor tweaks to the other ones. We've talked about the main map. Which one do you have up right now?
This is the density.
Okay, and so the density map is, and we've talked about this in the past, is just showing an estimated population base within a quarter section. So that when you're determining how many people are served by this segment of trail, you just go out to a half mile, so 2.
And each square is a quarter mile
Yeah.
across, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And then you can use that to come up with a rough calculation. It's not perfect.
Mhm. That's good.
But for a more rural community, this is about as good as we're gonna get.
Yeah.
And it's an easy way to do the calculations. If I see 3 gray squares, we're assuming there are 10. I'm taking the high end of what the population estimate is, so 10 people. Taking and saying, okay, there's 3 gray squares, that's 30 people. If you see, 3 gray squares plus a blue, I think was 50.
Blue's 50,
Yeah.
green's
So
100,
now you've got,
Yeah,
yellow's
you get the idea.
we got ways to add it all up.
orange is 400, and red is 600.
Yeah.
Right.
So here again, we were trying to,
And we acknowledge it's not a perfect system, but it's a good system to help try to be more objective with how you score these routes.
Yeah.
And it's a good start to get going with how many people we're gonna actually impact. And that is just one component of 35 different categories on the trail matrix. So, yes, it's important, but it's not the only consideration.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, we've talked about this in the past too, that matrix is just one tool. If you as a committee look at this and say, well, Mill Creek is scoring higher than Scio Ridge, but we know how important Scio Ridge is, you still have the authority to go forward and say, we're gonna recommend Scio Ridge as a priority. But it gives you something to look at for the next several years, and hopefully every year then you go back and look at this and say, okay, well, this part, we've got some new developments over here, so this population map might need to be updated a little bit.
Yeah.
We've got some new sidewalks here that have been put in. It's starting to form a connection that wasn't there before. So what I'm planning on doing is getting Anna the spreadsheet. I owe Anna a lot of data, and she's been very patient with me. I appreciate it. I will get that information to you as soon as possible, and I'll send it out to the TAP committee as well, so you've got that to look at. And I'd be happy to sit down at some point with, we had a small group that had started this whole matrix process. Maybe we sit down again and take a couple of segments and start to plug in the numbers, just so you get a feel for how that works.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's pretty robust.
Yeah.
and the Scio Ridge here again that we're talking about, upland is out, this is, you can see, 4 to 250, it's the high density area, and one reason that the project has, been talked about and it's there, so. I think the last map is this level of traffic stress.
Right, and this is something that was developed by somebody at, the University of, I think it says on there, I can't remember. It was a way of saying, okay, we know that there's a concept called the annual average daily traffic on a road, which gives you an idea of how many cars go through there. But then there's also a speed limit. So he came up with this formula that said, okay, if you've got a high speed limit and a lot of traffic, you have a very high level of traffic stress. If you've got low levels of traffic and low speed limits, you've got lower traffic stress. So a gravel road that's 55 miles an hour may not have a lot of traffic on it, but it's not necessarily going to be as comfortable as, say, a paved road that's 25 miles an hour. With a little bit more traffic. So that's what this is, and it's just a way, again, to come up with something a little bit more, I don't want to say scientific, but I can't think of a better word for it, than just saying, what's the speed limit
Is the stress being measured on people in the cars driving on the road or the people walking and riding bikes? on the
It's
road?
people walking and riding
Okay,
bikes, and it was primarily developed for cyclists.
Okay.
But it certainly does apply to pedestrians.
So I've certainly used that term before. High stress
High
roads
stress
while I'm
roads.
on my bike.
And some of
yes.
these red roads, I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah.
We were just talking about before the meeting, South
Yeah.
Church Road is
Sure,
one of those red roads.
you
that-
bet.
So,
Yeah,
I mean, here
okay,
again,
thanks.
these are the other way is, these are the primary roads, which basically are the arterials. When people are using, South Church to get to Ann Arbor,
Right.
Jackson Road, Zebra Road, these are the
Mhm.
busy roads. As you look at, we talk about, how roads are funded. That's the reason why these are busy and so like,
Sure.
but it's a good measure because it's like, okay, the reason why, and higher the volume, higher the speed, the less a lot of people would feel safe on those roads using those for walking, jogging, biking.
Sure.
One of the things we've talked about for years is connectivity.
Mhm.
And connectivity to the city is really important. And so these are the routes that people are going to use to connect to the city, and that's why. So church, for example, is a place
Right.
that we need to look at, as Roy alluded to earlier. Liberty is another place where that presentation last month we had,
Right.
possibly getting some help moving sidewalk down Liberty would be wonderful.
And that's what, if you're doing a connection to the city and it's on a red route, it probably doesn't make sense to try to put those people on the road. That's why you need a separate connection into the city, so it's safe for people to get there. Versus if there's a subdivision road that connected into the city, you could easily walk or ride or, safely get there, but we're trying to connect it, on the Liberty roads, the South Church roads, the Miller roads, Jackson roads, all those probably need other pathways, there's connections to the city, so.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
So with that, it sort of rolls right into the pros plan update. I think you, Chris, sent us and sent Patrick, and we shared it with the committee. So, Chris, you want an update?
So I'm not gonna go into too much detail on the survey results, other than I'll just kind of give you the highlights. I didn't see any major surprises at all. Maintaining maintaining existing facilities ranked very high, with 66% saying it was very important. Protecting natural resources was the top priority for the community at 72%, but then access to paths was at 67%. If you go through and you add together the people that said important and very important, those numbers go up even more. You're talking 94% for both maintaining properties and protecting natural resources, and 85% for access to paths. That's a pretty strong edict right there to develop more pathways with the community. Beyond that, though, when you ask people what types of activities you participate in, top response, 83% said trail activities, walking, biking, and so on. When we asked them specifically, do you want to see the South Pathways network expanded, 82% said yes. That's an overwhelming response. When you asked people, one of the things I thought was very interesting is on one of those questions we asked, how satisfied are you with Scio Township's parks, paths, and reserves? The only one that jumped out on that sheet was the zebra pathway. People were saying we're somewhat satisfied with it, which, and that includes all people who may not have been there. So that means that the people that went there really liked it. Somewhat satisfied may not sound overwhelmingly positive, but I think a lot of that issue, the reason that people didn't say very satisfied is it doesn't go anywhere yet.
Yeah.
We're still stuck getting over the river. I think once you get over that, you'll see that number go way up. We did ask people to give us, and this goes back to the map again, give us an idea of what you'd want to connect to. And overwhelming response was the border to border trail. And as an extension of that, you would be able to take the border to border trail to Ypsilanti, to Ann Arbor. A lot of comments about going north and connecting to the DTE Energy Foundation trails and up into the state parks up in that area. So getting that connection over the river is going to be really, really crucial going forward. Beyond that, there was one person who actually said, this is the route I'd like to see, and that was dealing with Scio Ridge and connecting to Ann Arbor. So yeah, I think you guys are very much on track with what people are asking for. Again, when we put the pros plan out there for public review, we'll get more feedback then. I hope to have a draft for you by early next month, so you have time to review it before the next TAP meeting. I will do everything I can. And if nothing else, it'll be a rough draft, so we can at least look at it, you can make any comments, and then we put it out for public review from there.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Chris?
Have you seen numbers this telling, this strong elsewhere?
Trails are popular everywhere. They really are. And maintenance is always the number one issue. Because you'll have people say, look, you've got all these properties and you can't use them. You know, the playground equipment is broken, there's no access, what have you. So that held true here too. And trails and pathways is always the number 2 item. So it's not unusual, and I actually kind of consider that a really good opportunity for you, because that kind of suggests that you've got a chance now to connect to other communities. So as Dexter continues to do their work, as Pittsfield does their work, starting to have conversations with surrounding communities and saying, hey, we want to connect here. Do you want to go in on a grant application jointly? Does that make sense? Or connecting with Washington County Parks and saying, hey, we'd like to get this done. It's a pretty major project. We think it would be something that's beneficial to you. Now you've got the border to border going straight through you. So I think they've already got a pretty good, strong footprint here. But you get the idea. It certainly does suggest a lot of opportunities to build a strong interconnected pathway system and, you know, help get people out biking and walking.
Follow up with, you're saying, Patrick, Washington County Parks, probably 4 or 5 years ago, we hired a consultant out, I think, in Kansas City, and they went out and actually, you know, got information and, you know, sent out, you know, a lot of, and we broke it up, put like Southwest, Northwest, Southeast City. We tried to get input, you know, countywide, not just, you know, survey. So they did, you know, stuff down in Manchester, stuff out in Chelsea, stuff, you know, in Salem, in City of Ann Arbor, and, you know, down in the south. And here again, the number one thing was trails. 83% of the people, didn't matter if you're down in Manchester or City of Ann Arbor, trails, maintenance, some of the same stuff. So when I saw the results, sort of like, you know, it's pretty uniform, at least in here, Washington County, but even talking in talking to people out at Kansas City, is that, you know, this is sort of nationwide, but it was even higher here in Washington County as far as what they wanted to see the trails being connected. And here again, I think, you know, we built some of these and now people see sort of like, oh, this is what it could be, you know, and so it's like, it sort of builds that momentum. It's like, yeah, excitement's like, yeah, let's continue to connect to, so if I can connect to, you know, Ypsilanti or Chelsea or Dexter and all that, pull it all together, people are like, yeah, please complete what you've started. So, and I think the same thing, what we're seeing here is sort of like, yeah, I've seen what you've done, please finish that or do these connections. So I think it's exciting that, you know, what we've been, you know, and the millage passed, what, 70-some%, the parks and pathway millage. What was it? 73, yeah. So there is support for this. So yeah, we'll look forward to the pros plans as it, you know, so we can review it. So we could put it on our October 12th meeting.
That's the goal. We'll do everything I can to be.
Okay. Anything else for Chris? Don't really have. Yeah. Time to go on road funding 101. We did talk about it a little bit, and it's sort of interesting, you know, this map sort of, you know, like I was telling, the primary roads, and I mean, the reds are mostly all the primary roads. You know, some of these yellows are the local roads. So that's what we're talking about, you know, like this is Marsh Road, these are the Delhi roads. So these are the roads that we talked about, you know, how funding, there really is no funding from the state to take care of those. The road commission will maintain them, which means grade them, you know, do winter maintenance, do some minor drainage work. But if you want an improvement, you as a township, and this goes statewide, it's no different than, if you're in, up north or down here. You gotta figure out a way. So that's the whole idea of how they fix these, basically most all these yellow roads on here, which was how, the whole initiative of road funding millage, got steam, if you look across the different communities, Pittsfield Township, they sold bonds a couple of years ago in the neighborhood of $6 to $7 million. So that's one way people do it. Some people have millages, some people take it out of the general fund. And that's where, the committee 10 years ago, township-wide SAD was a way to equitably do that. So everyone first understands what and explain what the $85 is going to bring to you as far as value. Not that, not a lot of people live on these, but you still got to use these occasionally to get from one place to the other. And then having that caveat that it also would help do some maintenance and crack sealing on subdivision roads that do a neighborhood SAD. So that was sort of the whole idea behind that.
So that would almost be the map for roads 101 in the sense that different colors could show people this color, the state pays for everything.
Mhm.
This color, Washtenaw County takes care of everything. These colors, we have different responsibilities, but we pay the county, for example, the road commission to come in and do this work.
Mhm.
But it's our responsibility to pay for it in different colors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm. That'd be the easiest way to do it, yeah.
And so the red roads are called what again?
Primary roads.
Those are the primaries, and that's the county.
The road commission is going to take care of those
Okay.
from, every maintenance to long term.
And the yellow ones are the.
Yeah, there may be, here again, this map is not
Yeah.
that, but generally these are the lower volume roads.
Yeah,
So,
okay, I see.
When Chris put this map together, it was for a different purpose,
Yeah, okay.
but
I hear
they're
you.
very
Okay.
similar because here again, South Church Road goes all the way out to M52, so people come in,
Yeah,
Manchester,
sure.
they use it. That's, Zeeb Road, Liberty Road here at Zeeb, this is a local road.
I see.
It's a gravel, and so less people are using it, and it's sort of dead ends down here. I think that's about the Park Road. And here Jackson Road, and here's I-94. Here's Dexter Ann Arbor Road, here's Miller Road. Maybe a couple other primary roads that aren't shown on here. as far as red
Parker
road.
is not, is it?
Yeah, Parker is a primary road.
Oh, okay,
I'm
there you
not
go.
sure, I guess,
Did it get this?
yeah, south of here it didn't, but
Okay.
I'm not sure I'd want to ride on that either.
Well.
It probably doesn't have the volume, that's where it drops off in volume a little bit. But, the other thing interesting on this is how wide or are there any shoulders on some of these roads? And that's the thing I think we have going against us in Washtenaw County. A lot of our roads don't have any shoulders. It makes it challenging for anyone to share it with a pedestrian or a bicycle, a cyclist. So. So wrapping up, creating a to-do list. Do we have any to-do lists, Patrick,
We
for next
have,
meeting? Besides Chris is supposed to be getting us the pros plan.
Well, that's the big one.
That's
And right
huge.
after that is Anna getting her contact information to us.
That's right, that's true.
And then want to send the maps to, actually, all the members have the map because I sent it to them already.
Okay.
With the packet. So that was another one. And then I have a question about putting the map up on the website. I think we should do that. We identified a bunch of problems when we did that last time, and it's probably just a good idea to put it up and give people an opportunity to provide some initial feedback.
Yeah,
So we want to stay out of those problems.
good idea.
So those are the items. Again, the pros plan.
Would
Yeah.
you be willing to accept some public questions at the end of your meeting?
Generally, we don't do that. So I guess no. But Anna, is that something you could post some of these to the website? Do you have access to posting some of these maps?
Yeah, I will soon have access to editing the website. And then I also have access to posting as parks, pathways, and preserves on the Scio Township next door. Yeah, I think that might reach more people.
I think that's sort of sometimes, as our committee, we have sort of to-do lists, but then we don't have anyone that can do it because we don't have access to some of the stuff at the township. So it's like, okay, we can do certain things, but other things we don't have access to. So thank you.
Yeah, happy to.
We can't wait to get that list of things, of amazing things Anna can do for us.
Okay, anything else?
So I need to start, I didn't copy you on this packet, did I?
No,
I'll send it to you.
thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Any other questions, comments for the committee today?
I have an important question for Chris Nordstrom. May I please ask it?
I'm fine with that, but I don't wanna,
Okay, just make it sure, because that's really not the intent of this, is the question and answer for, but go ahead.
otherwise, Rob, if you'd like, feel free to give me a call at the office.
It's important that I ask this question before the meeting ends.
Okay,
All right, go ahead.
At the beginning of the meeting, you said that you were recording from the beginning of the meeting. And as I understand how Zoom works, it would have been recorded under the original ID number. Does that
No.
mean there are two separate recordings, the first 15 minutes and then the rest of the meeting from when we came in?
no. So, Christy from the township started up the link that we're on right now. And the meeting started after that, the meeting started with that recording. It did not start until the meeting was being recorded.
That's perfect. I just wanted to make sure that there weren't two separate recordings and if there were, to make sure you were saved the first 15 minutes. But thank you very much, Chris. I really appreciate your info.
Yeah. Meeting, I think, believe it started at 4:03 with the new link. That's what I recall. Yep. Well, nothing else. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So, yeah, and I'll support.
Okay, motion.
Stephen, I'll do it.
All right, I don't think we have to vote on that. If we can, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned at 5:32. Pretty close.